Welcome to For the Purpose Of, the podcast where we navigate the intersection of technology and the world of education. I am Sarah Wood, and I'm joined today by
Keith Tramper
and Ron Houtman. Today we're going to be talking a bit about accessibility and accessible design in the K-12 classroom and why it's important. I think the word universal design for learning, or that term, I'm starting to hear it more often again. And it's kind of been at a lull and it's coming back. So Keith, what's your question of the podcast?
I thought it'd be fun to kind of relive some of our school days and go back and just remember on who our favorite teacher was and why. So I'll start us out. One of my favorite teachers was Mr. Burgeon. I had him for high school physics. Of all the classes, I actually went on to get a minor in physics because of his class. So he taught with what he called the Socratic method. I think it's maybe understood a little different now, but it's kind of the idea that through class community, we could learn anything we needed to. And he was kind of the first teacher I saw ever do that really well. So really cool to get into community with the people in my class. And he really leaned heavily into the inquiry side of science.
Did you learn how to fling things too?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Fling things, light things on fire, use lasers.
Drop eggs.
Oh, yeah. What I remember from his class was his final exams were these like extreme open-ended scenarios, like how fast does a nerve signal travel in the human body? And at that point, we couldn't just Google that, right? So we had to figure out an entire experiment as a class to come up with how we were going to test this and find out how fast a human nerve signal went. So felt very accomplished when you finished that kind of final exam and did it together as a community.
Cool. I think I just like to fling stuff. But so mine was, I still remember this, believe it or not, from kindergarten. My kindergarten teacher was Mrs. Young. And we, believe this or not, we had a cat in our kindergarten class. I mean, that's like unheard of today, right? So we had a classroom cat. And do you guys remember nap time? You would get nap time in kindergarten. You didn't.
No.
If you didn't have all day kindergarten, you would get a nap time. So you'd lay down on your little mat and you'd close your eyes for 15 minutes or so. So this cat walked by me during our little nap time, and I grabbed onto its tail, and it had claws, and it swiped at me and got me in the hand. And I yelled and, of course, woke everybody up. And I love this quote from my kindergarten teacher. Ron, actually back then it was Ronnie, you just learned more about a cat in that one instant than I can ever teach you in your entire life. Like, oh yeah, cause and effect right there, right? Pull cat tail, get whacked by cat. Yes. And I always thought that was great. It's reminding me how important experiential learning is. For
natural consequences.
Yeah.
Especially, grabbing onto the cat. You learn those things again from experiences. And I really wish that the royal we in the education field understood that experiential learning is really, really important for kids. Just sitting in front of computers all day is not a great thing forever and ever. So, Sarah, how about yours?
I'm still fascinated by you had a cat in the classroom.
Yeah.
Like, as someone who's highly allergic to them, I was like, I would come home like with tears all day.
Yeah, nobody was allergic to anything back then. There was no peanut
No.
allergies. There was no cat allergies. I mean, just wasn't a thing.
So my favorite teacher was actually my 7th grade math teacher. And she was actually the reason why I started turning toward thinking about education, like even in 7th grade. She was the first teacher that I recall where it really stuck with me, and maybe it was how she had done it, but like I struggled with math, and she was the first teacher where her policy was, if you don't get it right the first time, I'm going to hand it back. You correct it, figure out what you did wrong, and then you turn it in again. Even after we had gone through them in class and everything. So you truly understood the process. And it was like, now knowing what I know, she was totally in that first attempt in learning and embraced that. And like back in the early 90s, that was a thing that she did. But I don't remember all of my teachers doing that. Not saying they weren't all great teachers, but like how she did that and her approach to it was a game changer. It just made her seem like a human, and like she understood that, we were still kids and we were still learning. So I that always sticks with me. She had interesting things that she taught us too that just made her a cool cat.
It's kind of it's like your whole classroom had the spoons removed.
Mm-hmm.
right? The spoon feed. I mean, it's like what Keith said too, is teaching in such a way to make kids make their own discoveries about something and try to solve their own problems versus lots of spoon feeding, which I know we could talk about that for a while too.
As educators, many of us were taught the traditional method of delivering instruction. Start with a lesson plan for a specific standard or objective, deliver a lecture to share the new concept, gradually release responsibility, assess, and then do it again. We know this works in theory, but in practice, it's not meeting the needs of all of our students, and it's leaving us frustrated. But don't worry, we get it, and we're here to help. With student-centered learning across Michigan, we're using practical, research-based strategies like blended learning, self-paced structures, and mastery-based grading to meet our students' needs while making it manageable for us. REMC has partnered with the Modern Classrooms Project to bring you a free, innovative professional learning experience where you'll collaborate with other phenomenal educators and get support from REMC instructional tech specialists as you begin to build your modern classroom. We believe that you can build a classroom that meets the needs of every student every day. Join us. Learn more at bit.ly/REMCSlam. That's bit.ly/REMCSLAM. Hey Podcast PDXers, we're glad you're here with us for another great conversation. As you listen to the next segment, think about how you'll respond to this episode's prompt. Which accessible design idea sticks out to you? How do you see it impacting your classroom? Respond and learn more about Podcast PDX at bit.ly/FTPO PDX. Okay, well, one of the topics near and dear to our hearts is using technology to support equity. We believe that all students should have access to materials that support their learning and recognize that students have diverse needs and often need accommodations to access the curriculum. Today, we'll share some practical adjustments you can make to remove access barriers for all students. So I'm going to start us out with the big question here. What are some design tips for teachers who want to improve the accessibility of their digital materials? Let's start out with you, Sarah.
So there are, I think, a couple things that jump out to me when I'm thinking about this. And I always start with the presentation, how this is going to look. And so I will talk about structuring the content. Like, how am I presenting that to my audience? And I think like knowing the audience in general is the first part in that process. If you're speaking to some of the littles versus high school students, you need to be aware of the text and things that you're presenting that are on there. So I always try and like chunk information, really break it down into concise and brief parts. And we've all been in those rooms where like you're sitting there, maybe a professional learning, and all of a sudden you have a ton of text on the screen and you're like, I cannot process this. There's so much on there. So I think it's important to really just focus on the key information there. And I will quote Keith Tramper here, because I've heard him say this before, to aggressively delete non-essential content. And I like that because you laugh about it and you think about it and you're like, what can I delete? And then once you get going, it's easy to be aggressive in that approach. And by doing that, what you're doing is also freeing up some negative space in there. You're adding some white space that just makes content easier to digest because you're seeing it in pieces, not a big chunk. And then if you are kind of on the upper end where you're sharing information that is, you know, maybe bullet based or things like that, really think about your hierarchy that you have on there and how you're presenting that, and maybe even using colors to break that apart so that your students can easily read that. And of course, I think also adding images in there too is important to reduce some of that cognitive load.
I like that last point, Sarah, just about deleting stuff. I think we've all seen materials sometimes that are just like the TLDR page. And those that don't know that acronym, too long, didn't read. I just think about that, right? As if you're giving kids so much information, it's like the PowerPoint slide with like 400 words on it. Ugh, don't do that, please.
As I was talking to, I was like, I feel like I should make like a sticker that has Keith's face on it and it says aggressively delete non-essential content. We can just slap that on like telephone poles.
I can't say that I came up with that myself. That came from somewhere on the internet that I don't remember at this moment, but
Gotcha.
it's
That's
a
all
good
right.
quote. It is a good quote.
It is. And I was going to say, I think another thing too that is near and dear to my heart is that choice boards. I'm a firm believer in giving students, whether they're children students or adult students, any of those learners, giving them voice and choice in their learning. And I think that really fits in with the whole UDL concept of having that multiple means of representation. Like when we give students that empowerment to be in control of their learning, what they create is usually mind blowing to me. And in several of the PDs I've ran, where I've even given adult learners that choice, they're like, I don't always have this in my learning now that I'm adult. And so they really appreciate allowing, having the opportunity to share things that work for them. And it makes them think differently. Like, how often do I give my students this opportunity to show what they know? Or even how am I presenting content in multiple ways to reach students? So those are my big things, I feel like. Ron, what are you thinking?
So I always think about how technology can help kids in lots of different ways. I think one of the ones that's really at the forefront is because, and we've been doing this for years now, thinking about using video in our classrooms and audio, is making sure closed captioning is available for kids in lots of different ways and places. So just the whole idea of closed captioning, I think you've seen it really come to the forefront in realization for a lot of people. All one has to do is go online and look at a YouTube short or a TikTok nowadays. Every single one of those has captions of the words. And there's a couple reasons behind that. One of them is that many people are watching those kind of videos without any sound on because they're hiding their cell phones in the classroom. Um,
Or in a quiet doctor's office.
yeah, wherever it might be. Yeah, it just gives you more opportunities to consume content when you can see the words there. But it also helps our students in lots of ways too, as if they're unfamiliar with a word that's being used in the video, they're getting that reinforcement of that word. They can see it and they can maybe recall that. I just think about, how we recall things using flashcards. To me, it's, that same spaced repetition method that works really well is if you're hearing those words and seeing those words at the same time. Think about the large influx of folks that we're having as newcomers to the United States. Having captioning available to them is going to be extremely helpful, especially when the content that we are sharing with them is in English. In YouTube, you can quickly change over the closed captioning to your native language. And then that helps you, again, do language acquisition in a lot more efficient way. But I just think about those that might have hearing difficulties also. And one that people don't realize too, even those that have visual impairments can use closed captioning because the caption track can be automatically sent to a refreshable Braille keyboard. So they can actually, quote unquote, hear and see those words also. So there's a lot of ways to do that. To me, that's a universal thing we should always be doing, is making sure that captioning is available to students in lots of different ways.
And I think that's helpful too for students who are having trouble focusing. It's the ongoing joke at our house because I turn the closed captions on for everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it makes me hear better. And they're like, but you're reading. And I'm like, no, I hear better with them on. But what it does for me is it blocks out the other things because I'm focused in on reading while listening.
Yeah.
And so it's super helpful, even as an adult.
Yeah.
I turn it on some of the British shows. I can't quite understand the accent. I do that. But to your point, if you turn closed caption on, even for non-English movies and videos too, in the past, you would have to wait for these things to get closed caption, put in a theater someplace. Now, I can watch things in Korean or Japanese or any other language, Urdu, you name it, turn the captions on. Now I can actually consume content from other cultures that I might not be otherwise exposed to. So it's got a lot of benefits there. I think the other one I would think about too is I came up with this acronym a million years ago as we were, before the show, Googling this term that Ron Houtman came up with, is ATNAPFS, and it's ATNAPFTS, which stands for All Teachers Need a Place for Their Stuff. in the year 2023 or wherever we are now, 24, 20,
24.
Yeah, okay, 2020. Yeah, that.
It's only February. It's okay.
Yeah.
You've got till
Check,
June.
stupid checkbook. I don't know what day it is. Um, check, and you guys are like, checkbook, what?
What's a checkbook?
Yeah. Okay, back to Atnapuffs. Is the term was really when at the beginning of EdTech land, I would say 15 years ago or so, we're really starting to see, teachers have lots and lots of digital conversions. Like they're taking their normal documents and converting them over to digital. And the problem is that they were just all over the place. So you'd have all kinds of links to places, and teachers are writing URLs on the whiteboard / chalkboard, whatever it would be. Kids are typing out these giant things with combinations of uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, hieroglyphics, and a gang sign, and trying to get to these things. So Adnapuffs really came out of the idea of efficiency of access. Like, how can I, as a teacher, give my kids the materials with one visit to one place with hyperlinks to those places? So I know some teachers do a really good job of this, of just creating, if it's all in Google Classroom or Canvas or Schoology, of just having all of their curriculum available to the students without limitation. Or creating a hyperdoc, which is a document that you're just linking stuff out to. It's really important just to decrease the cognitive load of students so they don't have to figure out where stuff is or ask you 3 times, like, where am I going to find this stuff? You should always make that readily apparent and visible to your students, always. There's a philosophical question here, too, that I run into for years and years is, should I give kids access to all the curricular material at one time? That's up to you. I like to give it out unit by unit instead of the whole entire course sequence, because you will have, and I think all 3 of us have had this, the kiddo that will go and do all the work in 1 or 2 week period of time. And then they'll be sitting there like, okay, I'm done with your class. What now? You're struggling to come up with stuff. So I've seen that happen too. So
Sorry,
Keith,
that would be me.
oh yeah.
So,
Keith, I guess on that thing about all your materials, what are some tips that you're thinking about in your ideas about trying to make things easy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to go back to one of the ones that Sarah said was structuring your content. I think the same thing is applicable to when you're giving directions. Sometimes we have a tendency to just type out all the directions in like one giant paragraph. I see that often. So can we break down that paragraph into short bullet points or stepped numbered lists, so students can kind of easily see in small chunks in a non-overwhelming way what the things are they need to do. So using numbered lists, one of the practices I usually encourage is 1 verb per line. So watch this thing and then respond to this thing, go to this place. So having 1 verb per numbered list goes a long ways too. Another big one for me, I love talking about this, is just colors. Your color choice makes a lot of difference in what you're building. So when you're making materials online, they say to use the 3 color rule. And that is choosing 3 colors, one that's a primary color for your design, your materials. The second one is a secondary color, and the third is more of just an emphasis color. So something that you use to draw attention to a certain aspect. So 3 colors is usually a good place to go. When you have tons of colors, it starts to overwhelm the eye. So limiting that is a good idea. You can also use those 3 colors to build color cues. So, this slide or this section of a Google Doc or this part of a video is colored blue, and that means that this is an activity that I need to do. You can use color cues like that, but I should say best practice with that is that color should not be the only indicator of what that color means in the context of your document. So also spell it out when you're using those color cues. The next one is color contrast. So how well does text show up on the color that you've chosen? There are tools online. I love Coolors. I think that's how you say it. Coolors. helps you pick a palette and then check it for contrast and check it for color blindness too. And the whole color blindness thing is really important and fascinating if you want to dig into it too. But Coolers has a nice tool there that will take your color palette and shift it into a lot of the common color blindness palettes so you can see.
What about red text on a black background?
Oh boy.
Or red text with blue background.
Oh, the one that makes your eyes feel like they're vibrating?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are clearly some color contrast things to think about. You know it when you see it, when you're like, God, that's hard to read, or whoa, that makes me feel dizzy. It really does make a significant difference. So definitely check it.
So Sarah, could you talk briefly about Comic Sans, the font, for a moment?
Very passionate about Comic Sans. Passionate in the fact, like, never ever use it. There's got to be research behind why you don't use it, other than you're not 5 years old. But for me personally, for most of my programs that I use or backgrounds, I put it in dark mode. It's honestly easier for me to read. It's less strain on my eyes. I'm someone who wears glasses, so I also have the like the blue blocking and glare on my lenses. But it is hard to read for me when I see a paragraph of white Comic Sans on a black background. And I've tried it the other way around, and it doesn't make it any easier. So I'm a fan if you're going for something general that will not offend anyone, because people, I know I'm not the only one who feels strongly about Comic Sans, but I go with Lexend usually as my default, because it's supposedly the best for learners to be able to digest that font with learning disabilities.
And Lexend is a font, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yep. So I think for our show notes, I'm going to put one in here. This is a web address you can send to people. It's called Comic Sans Criminal. If you give it that, it'll take them through a short tutorial about why you should never use Comic Sans unless your primary audience is under 11 years old only. It was some really good examples in there too, so you should probably take a look through this.
And I know it's cute and kid-friendly, and a lot of elementary teachers use it, so I apologize, elementary teachers, but do not send professional emails in Comic Sans. That's my 2 cents. Yeah. I'm off my soapbox now.
Or blue backgrounds with red text, yeah.
Yep.
Even worse, combining all of those.
Yeah.
But I think that also brings up a great point, though, too, because so many websites offer you the option to switch between dark mode and white mode. And think about when you send your emails, how are they coming across if someone has dark mode turned on, but you are using a color that you selected for your signature that is very close to black? You can't see it, mm-hmm. Just because you have white mode turned on.
I just send it because it's the color of my soul.
Well, that's where I live too, so it's all right.
I use dark mode because it's better for your battery. Less brightness on your screen keeps your battery for longer.
That's what that's what I'm going to start using as my justification. Not that I'm getting old and it's my eyes. Computer battery. Got us back.
All right. Well, one last thing to cover is around images when you're building materials. The first thing is that images should always be connected to the content that it's within, right? So don't have like those super funny memes, as fun as they are. Don't put those in the middle of the text or the content of what you're trying to provide. The things that you're putting in there need to support the learning. And then the next one is alt text. And if you've ever been to a website where you see an image and you put your mouse over it and little bits of text pop up to describe what the image is, that's alt text. That's what we're talking about here. Almost all tools that let you design anything have alt text built into them. It's usually kind of a right click and choose alt text. Sometimes there's hotkeys with it, but there's an art to building alt text too, which I won't get too far into. That's too far into the weeds here, but just know that you should be trying to describe what's in the picture. Okay, so it might be a single sentence that sort of describes things to help give those who can't see it some context for what that is. All right, so that's a lot of information there that we've all talked about. Thankfully, they're relatively simple adjustments once you get the hang of it. But it's something that you have to keep in mind every time you're building something or selecting something. And along the way, we can improve accessibility to all of our materials so that all of our students can access the learning that they need.
That's it for this episode of For the Purpose Of. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this podcast, we'd love it if you'd share it with a friend or rate us highly on your favorite podcast application.
We'd love to hear who your favorite teacher was. We always welcome that kind of information and your feedback at bit.ly/IamEdTech. We'll catch you next time on For the Purpose Of.
This podcast is a service of Kent ISD and is produced by Ron Houtman, Sarah Wood, and Keith Tramper, and edited by Keith Tramper. Our theme music is Neon Nights by Scott Holmes Music, and our ad music is Vienna Beat by Blue Dot Sessions.
We'll be with you shortly. Listen to this music.
You remember those old school intros to like Disney movies? That was an absolute banger when you heard that intro, though, let me tell you.